Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Man, I met this guy and saw his profile, and I couldn't wait to bring him on as a guest. We're gonna hear a whole bunch of great stories because he's a great storyteller, but also the impact that he's given throughout his life. How are you doing, Reno? Good morning.
I'm great. I'm great, David. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, thank you for taking the opportunity to make some time. Now, look at your profile, but it's better to hear it from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there on to ask some questions.
Well, I grew up in rural South Africa. I'm from a missionary farming family, fourth generation South African. My great grandparents immigrated to South Africa in the mid 19th century. And I became a journalist, a reporter in my early 20s. And experienced apartheid from my early childhood and then South Africa under a very tumultuous period. I left South Africa in 1981 and went to Germany on my way actually to Australia. But I ended up staying in Germany for nearly 30 years. I now live in Spain, but I do a lot of traveling in the UK. I've been in the United States a lot. I've just come back from South Africa where I met old friends. We had a school reunion.
Mm.
Some of those people I haven't seen for 5 decades. It was a great celebration.
Yeah, no, I could imagine, but the times that you were going through. So you obviously grew up in pre-apartheid uh, South Africa, and then you weren't there during the changes where when President Mandela came through, but you experienced it and through stories of the family.
Well, I actually went to South Africa just after Mandela was released as a journalist.
Wow.
And we were a small group of reporters who were invited to his home. This was about 3 months after his release. And we had a very intimate conversation with Mandela. What most impressed me was his forgiving nature. He was so forgiving. A reporter in our midst asked him, well, these Afrikaners imprisoned you for 27 years. They held you in solitary confinement for many of those years. Don't you feel any type of aggression toward them, feelings of revenge? And he said, it serves no purpose. We have to look at the future. We have to create a new nation. That really impressed me.
Yeah, and that's so powerful just in our own lives, right? I can't imagine the grace that he had and how cool it is just, to have met him. But the grace of forgiveness, that's that transcends everything. When we're in living our own experiences to transcend and be able to forgive people, even though that they might not be asking for it, they might not even receive the forgiving. That goes into that spiritual side of you. That helps us a lot more than it might help the receiver or the person we're intending on receiving.
What impressed me in that conversation was that having feelings of revenge, of retribution, always relates to past pains.
Mm.
And if you look at it from an angle of grace, those periods of pain actually shaped you into the person you were destined to become.
Mm.
And Mandela revealed that, of course, he managed to understand his Afrikaner persecutors very well while he was in prison, the reason, their fears and their anxieties. And he managed to confront the fears and anxieties of his enemies in such a way that he managed to create this atmosphere of reconciliation. And this period of the first few years of South African democracy from 1994 until he left the presidency in 2007 were, in my opinion, some of the best years in South Africa. Of course, after that period, you had uh, the period of where President Zuma and others in the ANC government then turned and became very corrupt. But those few years that Mandela led the country were very beautiful years.
And that's one of those things that, you know, power, right? Power corrupts, ultimate power corrupts ultimately. And and that's what happens. And that's why we have to appreciate people like President Mandela and the overall impact that he really showed not only South Africa, but the world.
Absolutely. There are very few people who have this power of transcending their own pain. Very few leaders I've seen in my career as a journalist who managed to display such leadership, and we are unfortunately seeing very little of that today. The only person I might mention is Zelensky, the president
Yep.
of Ukraine, but very few others.
Yeah, and right, it's you have to stand up. I was just talking to somebody recently, and they go, "Well, he was a comedian." I go, "But it doesn't matter what you do, right? You have lots of hobbies, and it matters how you stand up and show up for others." So I would agree that right now we need more people like that, and to stand up under the face of complete devastation, but also because your team needs you, your country needs you to do that. Again with going back to President Mandela and same thing with Zelensky. You might have opinions, right? That I'm sure, in a private conversation, he might say, "Man, those people are horrible, and I hate them," and things like that. But he knew that he had to let go of the anger to get what is needed in the real truth of living day to day.
Absolutely. I think also if you look at it from a personal level, um, so many of us remain in the pain of the past.
Mm.
How many people do you know who are fixated on the pain of a divorce or the pain of a loss that defines your entire identity? Instead of maybe looking at it from another perspective and saying, well, this happened to me. I experienced this financial disaster or this horrifying divorce or the loss of a loved one. But what did it teach me? Uh, what lesson can I take from that? And taking a different perspective. And this is the process I went through when I did my first pilgrimage walk on the Camino in Spain, where I was in a difficult situation, a very dysfunctional marriage, and my career in journalism was basically over because the internet was destroying the media industry, and I knew there was a major change coming, but I was battling with a new identity, trying to create a new identity for myself. And whilst walking on the Camino, I realized, well, this is not helping you. You got to you got to either accept the present situation fully, but you can't live in the fear and anxiety of the future or the pain and the loss of the past.
100%. And I guess that's a fine balance, truthfully, on talking about accepting your pain, right? How do you manage it? How do you carry it? Going back, that authenticity versus also having that purposeful living. I,
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, and it's not a one-off thing. I think going through pain, transmuting pain, is a long process, and some of the pains that we have experienced in life take much longer than other pains. And I think every person goes through these stages differently.
mm,
Uh, you go through periods or episodes of anger, of depression, of having an argument with God. Why did this happen to me?
Sure. Yeah.
Until you reach the stage of acceptance.
Mm.
And that's when you make the big move.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask you, what did you mean by a pilgrimage walk? I know what it might mean for me, but a lot of people might not have never heard that phrase.
Well, the most famous pilgrimage walk today is the Camino Santiago. It's an 800 kilometer, 500-mile walk through northwestern Spain. Some people see it as a sporting event. You start from Jean-Pierre-le-Pont in France, and you walk 20 to 25 kilometers every day for 6 weeks until you reach your destination. But what I experienced and what many pilgrims experienced is that as you start this walk on an ancient path walked by pilgrims for many centuries, something happens to you.
Mm.
And most people end that walk being a different person.
Now, okay, why is it called a pilgrimage walk? Like what I what how I interpret it for my life is I've done after my divorce, I started doing a lot of hiking, and where I'd go to a national park, grand expanse places, and just walk, have music in my head. I go through the same stages, anger, guilt, you go through them. Definitely isn't 25 miles a day. So what makes the Camino different for you or through your experience?
Well, the difference is that when you walk these ancient trails that have been walked by pilgrims for many centuries, it's a different atmosphere than walking in a mountain somewhere in Morocco,
Yeah.
as an example, because most of the people who walked the Camino de Santiago walked there for with an intention, with a purpose.
Mm.
Mostly in the Middle Ages, it was to seek penance. It was a mainly Catholic path, and and many of these pilgrims walked that path for their family, to seek penance for the
Mm.
family. And over the years, the path got literally forgotten until in the early 1980s, a Catholic priest revived the path. And then famous people like Shirley MacLaine walked it, and it became famous again. And over the years, more and more people have rediscovered this path. And now we have about 500,000 people walking it every year. When I walked it the first time in 2006, it was barely 100,000.
Mm. Okay, so you just said you walked it twice. What?
More than a dozen times, actually.
Okay, so is each walk bring you something different?
Absolutely. Uh, Also, walking the same path, you see different things walking the same path. It's like reading a good book. Uh, if you read that book a second time or a third time, you discover different themes, you discover different images.
Hmm.
And on the Camino, of course, one of the great gifts is the people you meet on that path. I've over the years spoken to and interviewed literally thousands of people, asked them about their motivation, why they walked the path, and very often, um, in most cases, I would say, uh, pilgrims on the Camino have experienced some personal disaster,
Mm.
either a life-threatening disease, going through a divorce, financial loss. Uh, there's an issue, and they've decided, okay, um, I'm going to walk the Camino to find out why this happened to me.
So
And mostly these people end the Camino a different person. They might change their career. They might pursue a different life, live in a different country. Um, and in my case, I met my current partner on the Camino. I was a volunteer in a pilgrim's hostel, and I met my partner who was a pilgrim, uh, and we've been together for 8 years now.
Awesome. And so do you renew that? Is that with your partner on the Camino? Obviously.
We've walked several routes together, and some of them we walk together, some of them we walk alone. Actually, Sarah is now taking a group uh, on the Camino next week. She is now a Camino guide. When I met her, she walked the Camino for the first time.
Wow. Okay. So and each version is different. And I guess so. Where I experience isn't necessarily a pilgrimage walk. It might be like a deep walk. Like it's a deep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a internal and very spiritual. Don't you know?
Absolutely. It's spiritual. Uh, Comparing it to a hike, for instance, a
Mm,
hike you would have the intention of maybe doing exercise, of maybe experiencing nature. When you're doing a pilgrimage walk, you have a question or you have an intention
mhm,
at the back of your mind, maybe to walk things off. Uh, uh, a- an issue that majorly impacted your life, and you feel the need to walk that off, to find a different perspective. And in many cases, it's actually the conversations you have with fellow pilgrims that emerge as being very healing. You find out that other people that you meet along the walk have had many more hardships than yourself, and then
mm.
you adopt a different perspective.
For sure. And you've written some books. Being a journalist, but authored books about the Camino walk.
Yeah.
What have those books
Well,
been?
my first book is on the Camino, is a novel called Walking on Edge. It's actually a compilation based on true facts of the conversations I've had with fellow pilgrims on my first two walks. The first walk was very short. It was only 120 kilometers over 2 weeks. And the second walk was the long one that I did over 5 weeks. And I met some fascinating people on that journey. And one of the main characters in that book is a person I called Chuck, an American Indian,
Mm.
actually a real person whom I met on the Camino, where I had some great conversations with him, and some of those conversations find themselves in that book. And then the second book is the insights. It's called Deep Walking for Body, Mind, and Soul. It's chapters on the personal insights I gained on the Camino. This was a book I wrote after, I think, my fourth or fifth walk. Uh, and of course, my other books that followed, my latest one is Sages, Saints, and Sinners, which is a novel based on the plague in the 14th century. Of course, also a walking theme.
Sure, yeah. I think walking is such a great metaphor on the challenges that we have. I have a comic book called The Pathfinder, where um, a guy had gone through a little bit of a problem and found himself on a path that he met the Pathfinder who gave him some sort of guidance. Because we learn through that, right? There's a walking when you're really doing it as a spiritual, it doesn't have to be religious, and those are two separate things, but it's our alignment with ourselves, and that's that spiritual side. What you could do now, the Camino and walks like that obviously are much different than a walk you might do for an hour or so. Uh, Even the hiking that I did in Yosemite, and walking up, and it took a couple hours up and down. I always said I'm not a hiker, but I follow paths. If you give me a path, I get to the end of the path and I walk back and I get back. It just the amount of effort and what goes on. How do you kind of decide if it's going to be a spiritual walk or like this, where it's a pilgrimage, right? Pilgrimage to me is more not only personal, but it's our personal relationship with the overall universe.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way of describing it. Uh, I think when you spend any period of time in nature, if you immerse yourself fully in nature and you train your senses, you attune your senses, your sight, your sense of smell, your sense of hearing uh, to the sounds of nature, you realign yourself with something greater than yourself.
Mm,
You immerse yourself in a bigger matrix. And I think when you do a longer walk over several weeks and you immerse fully in that natural environment, something happens. Not only, and this is what we know from research, do you de-stress your stress hormones, your cortisol levels drop significantly. And when your stress hormones fall back to a normal level, your prefrontal cortex is activated, which means your your thoughts
yep.
become far clearer. There's more clarity in your mind, and you are open to deeper insights. And the bottom line is that we human beings are actually designed to walk, uh, to feel that connection between our brains and our feet.
Yep. Yeah, it's that whole it is. It's part sensory, and but it's also for, I mean, but 25 miles, right? So that's a marathon a
Well,
day.
that would be 12 miles a day on average, um, 25 kilometers or 12 miles a day. But I've done more than that. But I find for myself, uh, 12 to 13 miles a day is about as much as I like doing. Uh, Doing
That's
more than that
interesting. Yeah. That
becomes a bit of a physical strain.
yeah, that's interesting because I do something like that when I'm in my peak performance, I walk 10 miles. There's a park near my house where it's 5 miles to the beach, and then if you get there, you have to turn back. And I try to walk it at a crisp pace. So that's where I'm I work out a lot of things. I've come out with a lot of ideas for my books and things like that that really grow. And I guess that's why you would do something like the Camino. Are there other pilgrimage? I'm said it wrong. Have you done other walks? You know,
Yes, I have actually. There's quite actually the whole of Europe is crisscrossed with pilgrimage
yeah.
paths. Uh, there's a long walk that starts in Poland, all the way from Poland, and connects with the German Camino and crosses through France all the way to Spain. There's a lovely walk I did through Switzerland and the Francigena in Italy from Tuscany to Rome. And this year, Sarah and myself will be doing the Assisi route from Florence,
So far.
which is a lovely one. And also in the UK, in England, there's now the Walsingham route, that an old pilgrimage path that is being revived. That was actually destroyed by King Henry VIII because King Henry VIII destroyed all the monasteries and destroyed the pilgrimage tradition, which was very widespread in the United Kingdom in medieval times. English pilgrims walked started often in London and in different parts of England and Ireland, and then traveled by boat to Spain, and then walked the last section uh, to Santiago. And
Wow.
only now in our modern times is this route now being revived. So the question many people are asking, well, why are so many people rediscovering uh, the pilgrimage tradition?
Hmm.
And I think this is my personal opinion from the many conversations that I've had with fellow pilgrims, is that many people have become disillusioned with institutional religion.
Mm.
You know, from financial scandals to the abuse, to the shaming, to the dogma, to the politicizing of the church, and so forth. And people still have that yearning for the spiritual and for that experiential spirituality. And a lot of them are finding it through pilgrimage walking, through visiting sacred places, through visiting ancient cathedrals, and just sitting there in silence and contemplating in silence and just feeling that experience without an external voice telling them what to believe and how to behave and what dogma to follow.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I guess that's sort of where where we all are shifting to, as you said, in you can still identify yourself to a religion, but it doesn't have to be like me. I identify with Judaism, but there's a lot of the things that I follow that are not, my eating patterns and things like that. But I've never stopped knowing what my connection to what I'll call God or the universe is. I don't, that you can't shake me from. Everything else, I might have question. I'm one of those guys who likes to ask questions to learn more, not just to combat what is the dogma around some thinking. How do you choose your next? So you said you're gonna do the Assisi pilgrimage. Got that right? Um, how do you decide what pilgrimages that you'd like to do? Is there a reason for it, or is it just a calling that you
Uh,
you have?
Well, in my case, it's just simply the need to do a long walk of 300 to 400 kilometers every year,
Okay.
simply to immerse myself in nature and immerse myself in pilgrimage routes, as I said, that have been walked by pilgrims
Mm.
for many centuries before, and each and there's a saying on the Camino. The Camino starts after the Camino.
Mm.
Uh, you have very intense dreams, very intense imagery on the Camino, and the questions that you ask while walking, the answers come many weeks later after that walk.
And that's what also often happens is like it starts right. It kicks up dirt, um, in our minds, and how it settles and the visions that we have. Um,
Yes, indeed. Um, I did a lot of research on the walking tradition, and interestingly, people like Plato, Aristoteles, the famous
yeah,
philosophers, they didn't uh, lecture in a lecture hall. They took their students and they walked with their students.
experiential, right? It was right. I mean,
Uh,
that's where the theaters, the famous Greek theaters were were performances, but it was a journey. It wasn't what we would know today as our professors walking up to a conference and teaching and spewing out information. It was and there's a lot more from what I've read, a lot more feedback. That's why they all Aristotle, Plato, they all came from the same circles, and being in those right communities really brings us to that next level. And these pilgrimages that you're going on, I'm sure that it gives different thinkers all along the way.
yeah, the misconception most people have. is that a pilgrimage is a Christian tradition. It's not. You find the pilgrimage tradition in all the major religions.
Hmm.
You find it in Buddhism, you find it in Islam, uh, you have it in the Jewish tradition as well,
Right.
with Maimonides and other Jewish
Yeah.
teachers who also did a lot of walking.
Yeah. Well, walking, right? It moves the body. As you said, there's a science behind it also. Gets those
Absolutely.
yeah.
There's an interesting research done by the University of Barcelona here in Spain, and they found that spending just 20 minutes in the green and blue spaces of nature uh, already has a major impact on your body and mind. 20
100%.
minutes, I
Yep.
mean, fully immersing yourself in nature
Yeah.
already makes a huge difference.
Yep. It's that
Now
20.
imagine doing that every day for several hours for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I guess it, again, like I say, when I've gone to my hiking, I can only use that as an experience, or the walks that I do. It does. Yeah, being in nature, you start feeling things differently. You start absorbing the conditions, both good and bad. But having that, and they say, it all starts kicking in after 20 minutes. That's when the endorphins really kick in. Like if you're doing any cardio, they say if you're not doing 20 minutes, you really just have to at least 20 minutes a day is going to show so much of a benefit, which your your
Yeah,
research.
yeah. I think where people often uh, make the mistake is when they do too much. Uh, you have to find the right dosage. Uh,
Sure.
I always tell people who have never walked before, uh, do a few kilometers, maybe a mile or two, first
Of
day.
course. Yeah.
And then gradually you build on that. Because if you do too much at once, you lose motivation. This is why I think why many of these New Year resolutions are destined to fail, because people have this ambition of doing so many miles a day, and then they find that their body doesn't cope, and then they become frustrated and they lose motivation. But if you do it in small steps at a time and gradually your body adapts, and you have this feeling, wow, um, it, I'm feeling so much better. And if I stop doing this, I'm going to fall back to my old level. So I better keep on doing this.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's something that you teach, right? You have a consultancy business called Power Body Mind, right? That great balance that allows yourself to build that endurance. But again, being able to walk for 6 weeks, 10 miles a day, 12 miles a day, more or less, but also to enjoy the experience. There's a magical power in that. It's not just doing, like if you do heavy lifting, that's just a one focus thing that you still need all of that. But the endurance is really where some of that grows.
Absolutely. You just hit the nail on the head there. You really need to enjoy it.
Mm.
It needs to be fun. And many of the pilgrims I've met on the Camino see it as a type of torture, body torture, and they overexert themselves. They have blisters, they have pain, they have knee problems, back problems, because they do too much. And especially the first 2, 3 weeks or the first week, a lot of the walkers give up after the first week because number one, they haven't trained. Uh, they chose a route that is too difficult in comparison to their physical
Their
uh,
ability.
ability,
Yeah.
and they don't take it step by step and start with a small backpack, old worn shoes, and doing it just a few miles a day and then gradually increasing it. Well, I always tell people, you have to go your pace. You have to go according to your pace and don't overdo it. And you can walk anywhere. I mean, it's the easiest thing to do. You don't have to go to a fitness studio. You can go to a nearby park. You can go to a beach. You can do it anywhere.
Well, and then that's the beauty is, and that's why, as you said, as humans, we're made. Most of us are made for walking, short. I mean, back in the day, the medieval times, and all they did was walk everywhere. Most people didn't have the horses and stuff like that, or they weren't gonna ride a lot. You didn't want to stress the horse that you were working in the field going long distances. So you walked. You had that pilgrimage mentality. And
Yeah, the interesting thing is also the amount of carbohydrates and sugars that we are eating every day
mm,
is so much that we, in effect, need to walk at least 20 to 25 kilometers or 12 to 15 miles a day to to metabolize um, those carbohydrates and those sugars.
mm.
And because we're not doing that, it's filling our bodies. It's finding where do we find it? It's somewhere in our bodies.
Well, that's it. It's right. We deplete our bodies, and um, definitely, uh, my personal, the past month, I've had some medical that I because I hadn't taken it when I do my walking, and that's what I was aiming to get back to, and I will. But I'm eating healthier. I'm feeling healthier. My mind, the clarity becomes that much more. And these pilgrimages are really like interesting to me. After talking to you, I'm really curious about doing them. And I guess you have to prepare. So not only the the physical aspects, that's almost the easy thing to do because you have to know mentally. What other things do you have to do to prepare to do a walk like the Camino or any of the other pilgrimages?
Well, the first thing, start walking.
Yep.
Start walking if it's only 10 minutes a day. Uh, but do your walk. And there's this common misconception that it needs to be 10,000 steps a day. Um, but there's no scientific basis for it that it has to be 10,000 steps. We know that you already have a major uh, positive physical impact when you do more than 4,000 steps a day. And 4,000 steps is nothing. Every person can do it.
Yeah, and I just recently heard some studies that the new magic number is 8,500 steps.
Yeah, yeah.
So but it's also so like people laugh at me because they go, well, when you do your walking, how do you reduce weight so quickly? I go, I don't just walk lolly lolly, I try to walk at a brisk pace. That's why when I've done my 10-mile walks, it takes me about 2.5 hours. And because I'm doing it by myself, I might have music just as a background. Not, I don't really listen to it because I really go into myself on that. So I think it's our intentions and what we do with while the walk is the walk, but the intentions of what you're doing while you're walking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I did my first walk, uh, my monkey mind kicked in. It
Sure.
was it was like a thousand thoughts, and I lost my way. I missed way markers, and it was terrible. But gradually, of course, you train your mind, you train your body, and you become more aware. And now, of course, it's so ingrained that on the Camino, you more or less subconsciously see those yellow arrows, those yellow way markers, and uh, and of course, in today's age with Google Maps, you can't really get lost.
Right.
But
It
in
definitely makes it easier.
2006, there was no Google Maps,
Yep.
and I got horribly lost many times.
Sure. Yeah, you didn't know. Well, I guess you had mentioned also, I have a question that you said everybody chooses their path. So it's while I guess the pilgrimage is really, from point A to point B where you go, but there's different routes because it's not like a hiking path where it's a nice paved road and hey, follow this for, 500 kilometers.
Yeah, well, of course, we here in Europe have many paths that we can choose from, and most of the walks I do are here in northwestern Spain, and the most famous one is, of course, the Camino Frances,
Mhm.
the 500-mile walk from France to Santiago. But there are many lovely trails, many alternative trails or shorter trails. A very popular one is the one from Porto in Portugal. And it goes along the coastline of Portugal. Takes you less than 2 weeks to reach Santiago. And I recommend this path for first-time pilgrimage walkers because it's fairly easy to walk, fairly easy to do your 5, 6 miles a day and to then gradually increase to 12 miles a day. And all the people I've spoken to who've done it recently have had a lovely time.
So how do you prepare for that? So for the physical pieces, like you're not carrying, in a 6 week or even the 2 week, you might not carry 2 weeks worth of food and provisions because you need
Uh,
a, you
that,
need,
that's the good thing about these pilgrimage routes. You have uh, hostels, you have small towns and villages where you can stop. And I recommend uh, taking a backpack with no more than 10% of your body weight.
okay.
Um, because that's one of the things a lot of people they carry a lot of baggage
Mm,
metaphorically.
yep.
So what do? They carry a huge backpack. And as they start their walk, they realize, I don't need this, I don't need that, and then they send stuff back home, or they just dispose of it. Um, in the end, they reach their destination with 8 to 9 kilograms in their backpack.
Mm. Well, and because they've lost metaphorically as well as physically a whole bunch of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, of course, you need your water bottle.
Yep.
You need your energy bars, but not much more.
Okay. Well, you've had, so this has just been incredible for me to hear about these pilgrimages. But that also is just a portion of your life. One of the other things I really wanted to hear about because as a world history, I like all that. You were also in Germany when you decided to move to Germany. You were there during the changeover, the unification process, and how is that?
The period 1989 to 1990 was, in my mind, one of the most fascinating periods in human history because everyone who grew up uh, in my age
Mhm.
thought the Iron Curtain was impenetrable. Uh,
100%.
this was so ingrained. The Soviet Union would exist for the next decades. And I traveled to East Germany a few times and during communism. And I experienced firsthand what these people were experiencing under communism. I mean, East Germany was in a terrible state. I mean, they had um, towns and cities that were falling apart, literally.
The infrastructure,
The
there was
infrastructure was collapsing, and the Secret Service, the Stasi, was omnipresent. They
mm,
always knew where you were, and foreigners who visited the country, of course, were followed by the secret police.
Sure.
They knew all the time where you were, and neighbors were spying on each other. It was a terrible atmosphere.
Wow.
And then literally overnight, the whole system collapsed. Literally overnight.
Yeah, no, I remember watching it from the States, and you know, at that point, I had never been in Europe at all, so it was all completely what an amazing experience, and I can't imagine living there while it's happening. You know,
Yeah.
just even the
One
mental
picture that will always be frozen in my mind was when those first East German cars, they were called trubbies, literally cars built out of plastic, came across from the border, and uh, they saw West Germany for the first time. And this complete contrast, of course, gray and black East Germany, and then this consumerism, this color, this uh, uh, this
vibrancy.
this wealth in
Wow.
West Germany. And I saw two lads in a shopping center in Hamburg, outside a shopping center. They were literally stroking a Harley Davidson like a pet dog. They'd seen a Harley Davidson for the first time live in their life. Obviously, these boys had dreams of
Sure.
one day seeing a Harley Davidson, and they were looking at this motorbike, completely awestruck.
Yeah, I can't imagine. The few times that I've gone into countries that in Croatia, I've been to Croatia, and you go around there, uh, and it's still communist looking, and and I'm just in sort of the tourist areas. I'm not even talking about deep in the country, and you're like, wow, you get thrown back. I mean, recently, a couple of years ago, I went to Havana. They started opening up Havana for U.S. Citizens for education cruise tours, and seeing it and stepping back into a time that they're still living. I go back home and I have my iPhones, the pads, and all that stuff, and hearing. I mean, even on the tour in Havana, I remember talking to the tour guide, and she would talk about the revolution almost like it happened yesterday because her father was so involved, and she had a different set of opinions. And I started talking to her about that to just even understand of where they're at. It's incredible.
Yeah, and if I see those pictures of Cuba, East Germany was very much the same. And if you travel through East Germany today, it's unrecognizable. These towns, these cities have been completely rebuilt.
Mm,
And one a great example is the city of Dresden, which was completely flattened during World War II. Its famous Frauenkirche Cathedral was basically just two empty ruins, two walls standing. Um, and this old city center with its cathedral has been completely restored and rebuilt to its original
wow.
state. Uh, Same can be said about the city of Leipzig, of Erfurt, of East Berlin. Uh, so it's unbelievable that this is like not that long ago that these
Right. Well,
places were under communism.
yeah. Well, I guess that's the impact of how our lives go. Once you start seeing things, you can't unsee things.
Yeah.
And it starts learning that the overall cultures can change very quickly because of the impact and when there's less oppression.
Uh, I can't remember who said this, that sometimes history happens within a few months that normally happens over many decades.
Sure. Yeah.
And that this was the period 19, I would say, literally starting from 1988 to 1992, where literally ideologies collapsed.
Yep. Yeah.
Communism, apartheid, uh, um, fixed ideologies were revealed what they were,
Right.
empty shells. Yeah,
Poland at that time,
yeah,
Lech Walesa, and Ukraine became stopped becoming more of a satellite and became their own entity to stand on themselves.
exactly. Yeah, and I think the next few years are going to be very interesting times. Uh, I have this feeling that we are entering a very interesting period.
What do you think? Because I might have a, so I definitely think it's different. Period. I mean, in a way, I feel that we've stepped back into that authoritarian type of thinking, the colonism and things like that, which saddens me a little bit. But then, there's also the opportunity to bring different thought leaders. Again, when I was in Cuba, the people want different what they have. They just can't do it yourself. You can't fight sticks and stones with metal, no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
Like East Europe, East Germany, when you said they're driving in plastic cars, what do you say to somebody who's driving in a plastic car versus, a car that at that time they were all metal?
Yeah, well, I think there's a deep uh, human yearning for freedom.
Hmm.
Number one, freedom to express yourself, to live your destiny, to live your purpose. And if you can't do that, you you will the frustration at some point reaches a tipping point.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that tipping point is, and everybody's definition of freedom is different. We all want to be free, and what does that mean? And unfortunately, at least here in the States, sometimes freedom really feels, my freedom is more important than your freedom, rather than our freedom, what that looks like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's the issue about religion.
Hmm.
Uh, if we go into my religion has the truth and yours doesn't, we
Correct.
have a problem.
Right. Yeah, that's why when I talk about God, I'm like it's universe. We all,
Yeah,
again, I come from a Jewish faith, but I've married outside my faith, and I remember talking to the priest, and I said, as far as I understand, the overall concept is we go to heaven, right? And there's one God. How you get there, it doesn't really matter. Much like I guess on your pilgrimage, doesn't matter how you get there. It's just that you get to where you need to be, and that's what I believe, right? We all believe there's a here on after, and what does that look like? None of us know because we haven't had a full report.
yeah, yeah.
But
And I firmly believe that diversity is a divine creation.
mm,
Uh, you just need to look at nature.
yeah,
It's diversity. We have diversity of languages, of cultures for a reason, because every religion, every culture highlights a different aspect of humanity. This is why apartheid was such a tragedy, because what did apartheid teach us? Apartheid taught us the whites are the supreme race.
mm,
Everyone else,
yep,
the blacks, the Chinese, the Japanese, were inferior, um, which goes completely against the divine principle, which
correct.
is diversity.
Yeah, well, that's where I go. The divine principle really for me is it's always love. God, Jesus, however you brings that for you. If it's anything that's not about love, it becomes it's from man. It's based, it's ego fed, and if it's not love, then it's not really what we should do if we're trying to be a spiritual. It doesn't matter how you get there; it matters that you do get there.
Absolutely. I think if you're looking at a soul purpose, what is your soul purpose?
Hmm.
It's to spread kindness and love as a human being. and our world would be so much a better place if we ingrained that principle.
100%. I agree that as we're rounding up the episode, I always have everybody walking into my magic garden, and you've given us so much to think about. And in the magic garden, I want you to like plant a seed. What's one thing that you would love to put out to the universe, or that it might grow immediately, or it might take a little bit more work for people to help grow that seed? What's that one message that you might want?
Love yourself.
Mm, always starts with yourself.
Love yourself, and then you will learn to love others.
100%. Yeah. So thank you so much for it. How can people find you and the books that you write and to be
Well,
maybe on
I'm
a
on
journey
all
with you?
social media. You'll find me on Facebook, you'll find me on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and you'll find me on my website, reinogevers.com. Uh, you'll find details of my books there. And I have a weekly podcast called Living to Be, which is on Apple and Spotify, with the questions and topics we just talked about.
Okay, well, this is just a great sampler for that. And I thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and the storytelling has been incredible.
It was great talking to you, David.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. And everybody else, as always, I wish you the best as well, to have peace and love in your life. And when you need to bring a bat, it's about bringing those awesome thoughts that we had today and really be awesome today. Thank you so much.